Bronx slangers in the room, hide away, sucker.
I spent the day with the lovely Mike Edwards riding electric motorcycles. He'd had a bit of experience in them before. I've never had a spin on one, so it's really cool. And we just recorded it, right? So it's not like, you know, the fanciest display in the world of electric bikes and all the information's out there, right? And it changes regularly. So this is kind of like, hopefully, if you go to the end of the video, you'll see us just discussing how the bikes felt, what we enjoyed about them, and a few of the merits of the electric bikes. It was quite surprising, actually. It's definitely worth having a spin on one, even if you've got an electric vehicle already, which I do, because it's a bike and it just works differently. And it's strange the differences in electric bikes to petrol bikes compared to electric cars to internal combustion engine cars. So the biggest thing I would say, have a spin on one, see what you think. But this is just what Mike and I thought.
They also, on these, you can AC charge them, which is like slow charging, and they can DC fast charge them, which is the big point with them. So the same chargers that the car networks use.
You can just plug in. It's that Type 2.
It's a Type 2, and then there's what's called CCS, which is the DC
on the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So these Zeros don't have DC fast charging, these do. So DC fast charging. So range-wise on these, having done lots of miles on them myself, if you sat on the motorway 70 miles an hour, you'll get about 90 miles an hour. Isn't generally the deciding factor of when you stop, is it, for most people? My backside's gone dead. I need a pee. I need a coffee. I need a smoke. I want to just go see something. It's whatever it is. Yeah, exactly. Having a little fun bloody buds. Whatever it's going to be.
I think it's a little vulgar.
You just. The only differences realistically are the handlebars, the foot pegs, and the seat and tail units piece.
Yeah, so it's a
Obviously the clocks are this.
Clocks are exactly the same. The
Headlights
headlights are different.
Handlebars are different. So
those handlebars are just taller, the foot pegs are lower, so it basically just gives you more comfort, stretches you out a little bit rather than being feet high up and crouched over as much. So that's designed more for two-up riding, it's got a bigger back, comfortable seat. That's a little bit of a
perch.
Yeah, you'd probably be okay on it, you two, but
what's the
okay.
torque?
200 newton meters a torque.
Really? So like a MotoGP bike's 140 newton meters. So it's not, and that's only at one point in the rev range, isn't it? Whereas these are doing 200.
So we've got a rider aids, I'm assuming, like they've got modes and stuff like that. So can you just run through those briefly for us?
Start the bike, put the side stand up, and then you just pull the brake lever and push this toggle switch here to start button. You let it click, and then you'll see it come saying go. Push that button once. The mode button at the front here is like a left and right toggle switch, and you can push it in. So if you push left on it, it goes down the left hand side.
And then you keep pressing left and toggle.
It'll just keep going all the way back down and top and back down again. If you push right, it goes down the right hand menu.
And then when you've got the one you want, you push it.
Got it, so you got the one you want, you push it in to select it, and it'll say, right, do you want ABS on or off? So you select yes, on. That symbol there is telling you what mode you're in, sort of power mode.
Oh, I see, right.
And that one's telling you what level of regen you've got.
Start with the negative, we don't
Well,
likes, and then finish on the highs with what we do like.
So the 5 things I didn't like, and I think some of these we're going to kind of we're going to rub shoulders on this one a little bit. For me, the whole ride there and the whole ride back on both bikes, the footrests were driving me mad. They're too short, which is the biggest thing for me. And the problem with that is because your feet are at a slight angle, the kicker plates, which work fine, but they move your foot out, so you end up with your foot permanently on the end of the footrest, not on the footrest. And the shape being so smooth and round, it felt like your foot was kind of slipping. You pervert. I think it needs some serrations just to give it grip, but it needs to be another 15 to 20 mil longer, and that would just give your feet a nice placement. I'm starting to run out, to be fair, because I love the whole idea of the power delivery and the seamless ride and the disconnect from the bike, because I sort of enjoy that, because you can kind of enjoy the ride a bit more. You're obviously not connected to the bike.
Are you crossing over into?
I'm having, yes, yeah. I'm
stopping at 3.
I'm stopping at 3. Yes.
Stopping at 3, perfect.
Right.
If there's only 3 things you don't like, then
There's only 3. Yeah, I would be nitpicking about it. Oh, the seat isn't as comfy, but that's kind of the nature of this bike. It's aggressive. It's a rude bike. The other one, the seat was a lot nicer to ride. It's not nicer to sit on. If I was doing a bigger distance, I would definitely choose the other bike.
So it's tricky, isn't it? I guess because the other bike, a lot of things I didn't like about this bike were fine on the other one.
Yeah.
You know, the ride, the seat. So the first thing I don't like, and I don't see the point of, is the differences in the power on the bikes.
Right.
You know,
This is a stronger bike.
this is a stronger bike. This was, and that's another thing actually. So the difference in the power between the bikes I didn't like, and the amount of power I didn't like, were the two things. So, as I said before, when you get an electric car, you're like, wow, this is fast. You know, that's a USP of electric, isn't it? It's fast. I wouldn't say these are fast. Yeah, I just wouldn't. This one, the more powerful one, has enough. Sorry, I'm trying to project because I'm thinking, oh, there, I've got a microphone on, I don't have to. I'd say this one has enough, you can enjoy it. You're not going to use the full throttle all the time, but you can use it on the road. It's usable. So if you like to use the throttle and that rewards you, then you can get this. Whereas on a lot of sports bikes, they're the opposite. They're like modern electric cars almost. They've got way too much power. You know, you can't use first gear. You can't use half throttle in first gear. Yeah. So these are the opposite to the cars in that respect. So
it's ultimate linear power, this, isn't it?
it is, but it's just not enough. Yeah, at no point did I go, whoa. Yeah. I was just like, oh yeah, well, so we'll get onto nice things in a minute, won't we, on the throttle? Yeah. But so not enough power and the faster one, and then I didn't see the point of the other one having less power. It was just
same bike but less power.
Same bike, less power. And so if you like the seat on the other one, but you want the more power, I don't know where that leaves you. Yeah. So yeah, because that I was like, oh, that's the stop. I'm already on the stop, so it wouldn't go faster. So that was those two things, was the power. And then I'd say nitpicking a bit, it's like the quality of the switches. Right. Didn't think it was that great. This one, there's no point talking about suspension because I think it was just this one's got a faulty shock. Yeah. The engine brake control for my third one, it was something I'd like to be more accessible. So
more instantly accessible.
Yeah. So on the motorway, I didn't want that engine braking, so I turned it off. And then when I came up to a roundabout, I was like, oh, I do want some now, but I'm approaching a roundabout, I'm trying to brake, and I don't want to go into a menu to find it. Yeah. So if I could have had, like I suggested to you, because it came to head, a gear lever that just controls engine braking. So as you're approaching a roundabout, you can go more, and that will slow you, and you know that's instantly accessible.
James came up with an idea. Excuse me, interrupting. I thought it was superb. Is when you close the throttle, have almost a reverse.
Oh
throttle.
yeah, that's
so
a good idea.
So there's a stop. Away, the more
engine brake. There you go.
But you know, my
but then,
is why don't you just fucking brake?
Well, yeah, and also because I have lost a fingertip because of this problem. If your hand's not in the right position, i.e. when the throttle's at closed, you cannot reach the brake lever. Right. So if you have the throttle wide open and move your hand around to there, for whatever reason, when you come off throttle, you've got no chance of braking. Yeah. So if that throttle rolled forward, and then you needed the brakes, you wouldn't be able to get to them. Yeah. So that's a rubbish idea. Yeah. And my finger attests to it.
That's all right, I'll let you off with that one.
On this particular bike, the seat just jams your nuts into what is a fuel tank.
That's angle of the seat.
Yeah, and this particular bike as well, this panel is different to the other bike. So this ridge here, for me, was on my inner thigh. Right. So that's my 5 that I cruised up to, but I would struggle, I think, to get any more than that.
Well,
so then
I love the power delivery, the way it's so kind of linear, and it's more throttle, more power, more throttle, more, and there's no thinking about it. There's no trying to select a gear. Like when we came to the set of traffic lights and it was a bit touch and go, you just pin it and you're through sort of thing. So that was the instantness of the power. I just like the idea of the power. I like it's quiet. What was interesting was how quieter this one was than the other one.
Oh yeah, the other one had a
bit
bit
more whiny, wasn't it? That'd be interesting to see what that was, but there was a marked difference in noise between the two. Screen on this one's much better. Well,
it had a screen.
He's got one.
Yeah.
The other one's got one, but it's about the size of the
Even when I tucked down, it didn't make any difference.
No.
I was surprised. That screen, I'd look at bikes with screens like that, I don't think they don't make much difference, but that was actually a really good screen.
Yes, I was impressed by it. You mentioned the brakes. I agree. The Brembos, they work, they're great. And I like the stability of the bike. On the motorway, we got up to sort of legal speeds, and the bike was absolutely rock solid. And I like that because it gives that sort of feeling of you can just kind of relax and, you know, press on, as it were. So linear power, stability, screen, braking is good, and I like it. Look, I think it's a pretty thing. You know, it's not conventional, but it's pretty.
How many is that, Mike?
Enough.
Okay.
Go for it, big boy.
So same as you, I'm going to start with the throttle. The mapping of the throttle I found excellent. Like, I've got an electric car and it's a Jag, right? So it's expensive and it's all nice and stuff, but the throttle is horrendous. I even emailed Jagger because I'm that kind of guy. It's like when you touch the throttle, you get a chunk of torque. It's like they're trying to show off how much torque it's got, but reality is you want the initial part of the throttle to be soft so you can manage it, and you know that's what you're doing. Whereas this, as Mike said, is perfectly linear, really easy to modulate. Perfect throttle, I think. Other than it didn't have enough go, but that's not the throttle's fault. The handling on the other bike I did actually like in the end, because it started giving you that confidence. You know, the damping worked well. I was only on that bike for a shorter period of time, weren't on many roads, so I didn't really start getting into it, but
you knew straight away within the first mile or two.
Yeah.
So much better.
Yeah, and I could then see you bouncing and crashing over bumps, and I was like, just riding them normally, so it was far more enjoyable. I think the ride and the handling of the bike were, on the one that was working properly, were good. The power delivery is good. The adjustability of the engine braking is a really good function, and it has 5 levels, but because I said it's hard to access it, it's not like you could switch to them to really find them, but it's good that you could have. I did try the highest and the lowest, and
so a more streamlined access of that.
Yeah, would make a big difference.
Like the BMs have a rotating wheel.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think, do you know what some of the cars have? They have paddle shifts to go up and down, so it's just easy access, and that's a gear changing mechanism change for that, and that's kind of like when I thought of this, I'm like, oh, that's the same as they have on some cars, so it's a system that kind of works. Right. What else did I like about it? It's got reverse.
Yeah, so
yes.
I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
But we never actually used it, but I mean that's such an because the bike is 240 kilos, is it?
Yeah, something like that.
And with little 29-inch size legs sat on the bike, the last thing I would try and do is try and paddle it about. Yeah. It's even got a sort of slow motion forward.
Yeah. If you're moving around in a enclosed area like this, would be handy.
It's a real bonus.
Yeah. And if you're on gravel, you know, sometimes you're trying to push a bike or it's wet, you know, so reverse on that is amazing. The charge times are good. So, you know, from a fast charger, full charge in less than an hour. We went up we've been around the bike for say 4 hours, haven't we? All coming up to 4 hours. So, and we haven't, I think we used 20% of the battery.
Yeah, I think it's still over 70%.
Yeah, so would you get a day out of it? Maybe, but depends on your riding, like you say, but you could, you know, you'd have, like with any electric vehicle, you have to plan ahead a little bit more. So as these become more prevalent and popular, you know, that Bikers Cafe would be a great spot to have 10 charging. Have they got one? Okay, so there you go. Wow.
So how did you feel other people viewed you when you pulled up at
I felt like they looked up to us and they felt we were superior to them.
As we stopped, there was one guy on the Triumph there who sort of said what were they like, and we were still in a bit in a state of flux at that point. And he said, "Oh, I'll stick with what I've got," sort of thing, because the first thing they ask is how much is it, and how far can it travel? Because immediately everyone gets all anxious about how far it's going to go. The worst thing I think this has got on the dashboard is a meter's telling you what percentage it is.
And really?
It's like I felt myself looking at it more than looking at the bloody speed on.
Yeah, I was looking at it's funny, I was looking at the range and that changes too quickly. So like 1 minute I looked down and I was like, crikey, we've got like 50 or 60 miles. So like we've done mileage quickly on this.
Yeah.
And then we came off the motorway and did something else. And I looked down and it's like, you've got 130 miles range or something. Oh no, 155 when we stopped for lunch, it said. Yeah, so that range thing, I know it's a hard thing for them to calculate because it does, you know, you do that for 2 seconds and it will go, well, if you're doing that for the rest of the battery, you're going to have no range. So. Yeah. But the percentage thing was handy to have that because you know, I've still got.
Did you buy one?
That's one thing we didn't touch upon in either of our 5 likes and 5 dislikes is the price. It's if you've got to want battery technology to stump up 24 grand for that bike. I think. I don't think I would have a Ducati Multistrada over it. But then you get down to personal choices. I mean, there's no maintenance on that. Your coil packs aren't going to go, your gear position sensor is not going to fail, it's not going to start leaking oil. All the problems with Ducatis and BMWs, it's never going to have them, and it's like a much smaller bike or manufacturer, isn't it? So,
well, if I had 24 grand to spend on a bike, and this was this type of bike, as in the monster-y, spiky type thing, I would definitely think about it because it's got more than enough power than what you need to use. You don't need 165, 70, 200 horsepower.
What?
Or more.
Sorry, what? You don't need?
Not on the road to go to the shop.
Yeah, you do.
I totally love the idea of it. I love the power delivery. That's the thing which is I'm sold on it. But is it worth the difference?
I think it's because it's kind of like the benefits of the power delivery. I think are more everyday usability rather than the fun side of it. So and everything, especially when you're talking about price, is subjective. If you've got £1 million in your back pocket and you fancy it, you're like, yeah, cool, I'll get it. Yeah. If you've got 15 grand in your back pocket for your bike, yeah, you're like, I could get a 1-year-old bike of whatever brand that does the same things and not have a monthly payment. Yeah. If you're going to PCP the whole thing and you've only got, say, 500 quid or nothing in your pocket, you're just going to carte blanche PCP it. It's probably only 20 quid a month different. And then you're like, yeah, I will have a 23 grand bike over the 15 grand Honda. And, I guess for me, the answer is you've just got to test ride it, see if you like it, and hope you have one with a shock that works, because it makes a big difference. But equally as well, the power was usable, so you can get more fun from that because you're going to use the bike. With super bikes, you never get near them on the road.
Cheap to run.
Yeah, pennies to run.
Tax.
Zero tax. Wonder what the insurance is like.
That's an interesting one.
My car insurance is way more expensive than petrol.